There are people who leave with their words first. They say, it's okay. They say, I understand. They say, I'm moving on. And maybe parts of that is even true. But the rest of them does not leave that easily. The rest keeps going back in smaller ways. Not always to a person, sometimes to a place. A street that is no longer necessary. A building they no longer have any reason to stand near. A door they already know will not open, but still cannot pass without feeling something in their chest pull tight. Sometimes it looks ridiculous even to them. Taking the longer route home for no reason. Checking an old message thread before bed as if words can soften overnight. Slowing down in front of a familiar building and pretending they are only tired, only distracted, only passing by. But they are not. Part of them is still waiting. That is the grief people do not talk about enough. Not just losing something, but continuing to circle the place where you lost it because your heart has not caught up with what your life already knows. And sometimes the deepest pain is not that the door closed. It is that some part of you still hopes it might choose you again. Her name was Elena. She was 32 and very good at seeming steady. She worked at a dental office downtown. She spoke gently to nervous patients. She remembered names. She never made anyone feel rushed or embarrassed. People trusted her because she had a way of making things feel calmer than they were. At church, she sat closer to the back than she used to. At work, she said she was tired when she meant sad. At home, she kept the sink empty and the counters wiped because a clean kitchen made the loneliness look less obvious. No one around her would have guessed that she still carried an old key in her wallet. Not in a drawer, not in a keepsake box. In her wallet, behind a card she barely used, where her thumb still found it sometimes, without her meaning to. The key no longer opened anything that belonged to her. She knew that. She had known it for months. Still, she kept it. Because once it had opened the apartment where she had been loved in ordinary ways. Her mug had been there, her shampoo in the shower, her sweater over the dining chair because she assumed without fear that she would be back tomorrow. That kind of belonging is hard to explain once it is gone. It is not made of dramatic things. It is made of ease, of not having to wonder whether you are welcome. And when you lose that, the body does not always know how to stop reaching for it. Elena told almost no one how much the ending had undone her. She did what many quiet women do when they are hurt. She became reasonable too early. She kept her voice level. She gave the clean version of the story. She acted like acceptance had already arrived because she did not know what else to do with pain that still felt undignified in her own hands. But under all that composure was one small belief she kept alive in secret. If I become easier to love, maybe what closed will open again. That belief settled into her habits. One Thursday after work, she stayed on the train one stop too long. She did not decide it in a dramatic way. Her body just stayed seated. When the doors opened, she stepped out and walked the familiar block with her hands in her coat pockets, telling herself she needed air. When she reached the building, she stopped across the street. The front light was on. The same narrow window beside the door reflected the street lamp. The brass handle caught the light the way it always had. She stood there pretending to check her phone. Then she went home feeling foolish, tender, and strangely hungry, though she had no appetite for dinner. Another night, she sat on the edge of her bed with one lamp on and opened the old message thread again. Not from the beginning, Only the end. Only the last stretch where everything had already become careful. She read the same line she always read, looking for some softness she might have missed before. Some hesitation. Some crack in the ending that would prove it had hurt him too in a way that still mattered now. When she found nothing, she locked the screen and pressed the phone against her chest for a few seconds before setting it face down. The next morning, she still made coffee, still answered emails, still smiled when someone said, "Long week?" But she was living with one foot in the present and one foot in a hallway she no longer belonged in. Then one rainy evening, she went back again. This time, she crossed the street. This time, she walked all the way to the building and stood close enough to see the names beside the buzzer. The old name was gone, not faded, not half peeled. Con. A new one sat there in its place, clean and certain. Before she could step away, someone inside opened the front door to leave. Elena moved aside automatically, murmured sorry, and in that one brief opening she saw enough. A pair of shoes she did not know, a potted plant near the window, a rolled yoga mat leaning by the wall. Nothing sharp, nothing cruel, just signs of a life that had continued. That was what made it hurt, not betrayal, not drama, not even rejection in the loud way people imagine rejection, just continuation. The apartment had gone on being lived in, and it had done so without asking whether Elena was ready. For the next few days, she kept arguing with what she had seen. Maybe the shoes belonged to a guest. Maybe she was assuming too much. Maybe the new name meant something temporary. Maybe what looked over was only complicated. Pain bargains before it lets go. By Sunday morning, she had written a note, then torn it up, then written another. The version she finally folded was short, too careful, too small. It said almost nothing, but it had cost her more than she wanted to admit. She slid it into her coat pocket and told herself she probably would not use it. She only wanted the option. The city was quiet when she got there. A man at the corner cafe was stacking chairs. Somewhere behind her, someone shook rain from an umbrella. Elena climbed the steps and stood in front of the door like she had not already done this 100 times in her mind. She touched the handle with her fingertips. Cold metal. She waited. Nothing. And standing there in that stillness, she became painfully aware of herself. The sweater she had chosen carefully. The lipstick she almost never wore that early. The folded note in her pocket. The extra seconds she had taken in the mirror before leaving home. She had prepared herself to be seen, not by a man, by a possibility. And suddenly the whole thing felt unbearably human. The apartment across the hall opened. An older woman stepped out carrying 2 grocery bags. Elena had seen her before but never spoken to her beyond a small hello. Elena looked away first. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I used to know someone here." The woman glanced at the closed door, then back at Elena. There was no judgment in her face, only recognition, the kind that comes from having lived long enough to know what people do when they are not ready to stop hoping. She shifted the bags in her hands and said softly, "Sweetheart, you don't have to keep coming back just because it was once home." Then she kept walking. That sentence stayed because it did not sound polished. It did not sound like advice. It sounded like truth that had been earned. Elena had been telling herself that returning meant the love had mattered, that leaving completely would make everything smaller somehow, less real, less sacred, less worth grieving. But maybe the love had already mattered. Maybe it had already counted. Maybe standing outside the door was not honoring it anymore. Maybe it was only keeping herself outside. She sat down on the stairwell landing because her legs no longer felt steady enough to hold her. The folded note was still in her pocket. She took it out and looked at it for a long time. For months, she had imagined the right words might do something, open something, soften something, give her one more moment of being received. But sitting there, the note did not look brave. It looked tired. It looked like one more attempt to ask a closed place to tell her who she was. And then the real truth came. She was not only grieving the relationship, she was grieving the fact that she had not been chosen to remain. That was the wound under everything. Not just missing him, not just missing the apartment or the ease or the old version of herself, but the deeper shame of realizing she had kept returning because she still needed that door to open in order to feel that she had not become less. If it opened again, even once, maybe she had not been so easy to set down. Maybe she had not imagined what they were. Maybe she had not been loved in a way that could simply be continued past. That was what broke her. Not only that the door had closed, that she had been waiting outside it to recover her worth. She cried then, but quietly. The kind of crying that folds inward. The kind that comes when you are finally too tired to keep making gentler explanations for what is true. Nothing changed all at once after that. She still thought about the place. Still felt the pull when the train neared the old stop. Still reached for her phone at night before catching herself. But now she could name the pull. It was not a sign. It was not unfinished destiny. It was a wound asking to be fed. So slowly she began to stop feeding it. On Monday, she stayed on the train when the old stop came. Her throat tightened. Her eyes burned. She looked straight ahead until the doors closed again. On Wednesday, she took the key out of her wallet and set it on the kitchen table. She walked past it twice before picking it up. On Friday, she placed it in a plain envelope and left it with the building manager during lunch. No note, no explanation, no performance of strength. That night, she opened the old message thread one last time. She looked at it until the words blurred, then turned off the screen before her mind could start calling rereading by a kinder name. Later, standing barefoot in the kitchen with only the stove light on, she bowed her head. Her prayer was small. Not, bring it back. Not, make me stop hurting. Only this, please help me stop waiting where you are no longer asking me to stay. That was all. And because it was so small, it felt honest. Some doors were real. They held warmth, ordinary evenings, kindness, laughter, and the quiet relief of being welcomed without having to earn it. That is why it hurts to leave them. That is why letting go can feel, at first, almost disloyal. But letting go does not mean it was not real. It means you stop asking a closed door to restore your value. It means you stop standing outside what has ended and calling it hope, when it is really the fear of not being chosen again. And sometimes grace does not reopen what you missed. Sometimes grace meets you in the hallway and teaches you how to leave without bitterness. Not dramatically, not all at once, just truthfully. So if there is a door you have been quietly checking in your own life, through memory, through old messages, through one more look, one more almost, one more private return, maybe today you do not need to knock again. Maybe today the gentlest thing you can do is take your heart with you and walk on.